Welcome back to Block TV, where it's time now for Traders Take, and we're filming this right at a point where we're having a pretty interesting rally play out in the markets just now. We saw a recent dip take Bitcoin back into that 6,000 territory. Now we're pumping back up to around the 7.1s, maybe even 7.2s by this point. And here to break it all down for us, we're live with Joe Saz, our trader and technical analyst from New York. Joe, what's happening here? Let's break this one down.
Yeah, so I have some good news. Well, we did just breach 7,300 even, so that's great. So right now what we're looking at, and let me make sure that I can click on this right here. We're looking at some exchange activity, and we have sellers stepping up now. So it seems like they've capped us out at 73.62-ish. Now, buyers are still, stacking the book. They still seem to want their Bitcoin, but this run is starting to stall out. Now, the thing that I'm going to take most note of, there we go, nice little flood of green, couple Bitcoin. It's really small fish playing right now. 2.5 packs to probably about 3 in here, about the same. So this isn't like a massive whale battle where you're seeing 50 packs get taken out of each side. This isn't, the straight up volatile crypto war that you see happen in the trade sometimes on the exchanges. But this is definitely a great run. I mean, we came from the grave. I mean, man, this was mid 6800s, all the way up to a high of 7,300. This is what I want to see in a rejection. Like this is people saying absolutely not. We're not going lower than this. And now that we're getting saved, we have a pretty distinct lower high. This is also a very strong rejection in my eyes too. There was a bit of uncertainty, a little like low liquidity, but then you see when buying really took off and pulled us right back into a safe territory. Now this was the last bit of FOMO and ended up in a reversal hammer and a bit of sideways and down actually action. This is kind of dangerous. Leading into a breakdown and then humongous volume. This is exactly what I want to see, Asher. Like, look at this. The biggest volume candle in this run for the sellers is at the end. And this to me, like I've been saying, is a sign of sucker selling. And I don't think sucker selling, it could be the smart suckers selling. I think the smartest suckers selling has already ended. So this would be the second phase, and it doesn't seem like it's right now. It seems like it's found a bottom. So I don't know how much more damage it can possibly do, but we do have a ton of buy volume. It's here. They're showing up in numbers, and that's exactly what I want to see in the bulls.
And what about that resistance there that we're seeing around 72, 7,300? Do you expect we're going to break through that at some point in the near future, or do you think that that's a pretty solid resistance wall that we're hitting right there?
Yeah, this is actually, I don't know why this isn't drawn, but this is very significant to me. The fact that we haven't been able to break this and we've tested it so many times is a little bit, I think it creates a little more of a bearish case scenario. But I mean, we're still, this is a 115-minute candle. We're 4 minutes out from its close. We did puncture the top of it. And I think that we can finally get a close above this within over the next day or so, maybe even sooner. This could happen in the next candle. I'm just giving myself some wiggle room. But if we don't get a close above this, I don't want to see us come back to 6,900 again. We need to get the heck out of here. If we're really creating any sort of bullish market, and you know my thoughts on that. I'm kind of looking at this as a bunch of mini cycles. Oh, whoops! Let me get this down. And, I'm looking at this as its own separate bull run. This is its own separate breakdown. And we've now found a lower low. So let me zoom in now that we kind of have the broad picture. In order for me to be convinced that anything that happened over here has any real value, then we really need to start picking this up. And if we don't, then that means that this didn't have any real value, which most of it I don't think was. On top of it, I think this is going to, if we don't break out here to at least 7,600 and start creating a little bit of friction between buyers and sellers, I mean, then we're going to probably tank down to 4,500. That easily puts that target back on the line. And that's not really something that I want to do after a pump like this, because this pump, if it would have been in the opposite direction, would have really just kissed my $4,500 target. It actually would have hit, no, it would have missed it. It would have gone a little deeper. It would have been like 4,300 or so. So, this pump, in my opinion, saved us from a lot of downside action. And so this could be a normal market reaction, but I'm also thinking of this pump as what if we would have been at 4,500 and reacting similarly. And so this is kind of some of the stuff that's going on in my head. I mean, we're not, so obviously, 7,000 Bitcoin is still a strong Bitcoin, especially 6 months out from the halving. I just think that we should, this is a short-term market reversal area, and I think we need to take full advantage of it. Let me get this back. This wasn't the daily, sorry, that was on the 6-hour. And you can see that we've started to find a little bit of bottomy candles here. We have a lot of volume in this buying. This candle even turned green, which was a very dangerous candle to me. I thought that we were going to flash down a bit lower. But here we are on another, hammer type candle. Tiny bit of volume. We're still 12 hours out from the daily close. So it's probably going to just be a low volume day. But if bulls and if bears are pulling liquidity because they're starting to get scared of bulls, then that's exactly what that I want to see. That's exactly what I want to see, because that's pretty much what I was seeing almost this entire time. Now, obviously, there were a couple pockets of time where we spent some. There's a couple price pockets where we spent some time fighting and got out. But I still think that if we have bears getting scared and bulls showing up in numbers, it's not going to take much volume to move the price. And that's pretty much the moment that I'm waiting for, to confirm that the market is done transitioning from that signature that I've been pointing out of sellers being suckers, and that the smart selling is done, or the coordinated selling is done, and we're transitioning from that to sucker selling, which is kind of a bottom to me. And then that phase can last. Like I said, I think there could be maybe a couple types of sucker sellers. There could be the smarter range of sucker sellers, which are selling now, and then there could be the more capitulatory sucker sellers, which will sell at lower prices. Probably below 6,000 is where I'd start to say that phase of sellers kicks in. So for now, I'm just I'm looking for the market bounce. The RSI is bringing us back into a reasonable channel, and I still think we have some room to go here, to get some normal levels. And I'd like to get back up, grind up at the very least. But one last thing on the daily, the MACD is starting to look a little bit bullish, which is good. Let's see how deep we are into a bullish crossover on the 12-hour. Looks like we made the crossover on the 12-hour. So I would say the daily is probably up next, and this is a lagging indicator, which usually means that it's going to continue that trend for a little while. So that'll be great. The one thing that I was kind of hoping for in a weird little way was that we would get another 9 buy. Excuse me. I was hoping we would get another 9 buy, because there's no way in the frickin' world that we would get 3 9 buy duds in a row. I mean, we had a 9 buy dud right here that completely shot you in the foot, 12% to the downside, continuation to the downside immediately after. And on top of it, we had a 9 buy weeks later that completely shot you in the foot, continued downside, and you're wrecked. So this area is, I was kind of hoping that we would maybe go a little bit more down and just kind of grind a couple more, 3 more candles, and get that 9 buy and just trigger a ton of buying. I mean, I was really hoping for that, but it doesn't look like we'll get that at this point in time. Again, still early in the day, but we're grinding up from here. I think we found a bottom. I'm going to be more convinced if we can break out above 7,600 and sustain that breakout. That's very important to me. 7,600 is an important number.
Right.
That's right around here. That's kind of where the wick space of the 9 buy was filled. It's just like my area right now where I saw some resistance that was pretty strong, and I think that we can get back up through it, or it was support on the downside. And if we can get back up through that area, then I think we're going to start rebuilding some of these 73, 7,200 aggregations, and start to get into a really organic looking bull market. That's something that I'm really looking forward to.
All right, so if I were to summarize your thoughts then, Joe, it would be that if we're able to break up to that 7,600, you could see an organic bull market playing out, not any of that sort of wild exceptionalism we saw at the start of, and midway through 2019. But on the downside of that, if we're unable to break through some of those resistance thresholds, you think 4,500 is still on the cards?
I think it's still on the table. I really wanted to take that off. It pretty much was taken off. I gave it like more of a 20% chance, but since this run, after we consolidated and just continued down, and now it put 4,500 back on the table, especially after eating through this 9 buy. I gotta say, I mean, it's back on the table, but keep in mind, I might be shifting into a bullish bias, which might be the first time you've heard me say that, Asher. So if we can get there, 7,600, I think will be a good spot for us to feel like a bottom has been found. And then I think my 7,600 is where I'll start throwing up my stop losses, because I think if we can get to 76, we can probably get to 78, and I think we might have a little more volatility to the upside at that point, which would mean that my stop loss would be less likely to get eaten. And that's kind of the feel that I want to go with right now in the market. I want to see us, really make that move into a bullish posture. So it's very possible that everyone's oscillators are swirling right now. Everyone's indicators are, it's such a tight gap that maybe the indicators are being misleading. This is a very challenging time to trade, and I think that uncertainty is going to add to FOMO in either direction. And hopefully right now it's FOMO to the upside.
We'll have to watch closely to see if that does manage to pan out and we get that upside action. But Joe, just turning now to alts for a moment and taking a look if the market is pulling them along behind Bitcoin, or if there's someone coming out in front. Do you see any action worth monitoring there?
Yeah, let's take a quick look. Oh wow, XRP US dollar. I'll like, just so you know, this is the only time that I've been excited about this asset, only because it's like it actually was looking fantastic. It had now a green candle. It's a red one, but a green candle coming out of this. Oh, we wicked and hit the top of this, so this might be a longer, slower, drawn-out move, and it might just be a 1 to 4 candle correction and a continuation. So I mean, I'm in a way, I'm glad I didn't play this, because by the time I would have, I would probably be about breaking even right now. And that's not how I trade. I don't trade to break even. So this thing really needs to kick off and start following this trend, this line here, and I'll make it a little less steep for people, to give XRP a chance. But man, this thing already wicked back down below this candle. Not a great sign to me. And here we are, still in the middle of this wick space, and we have created a new low. So Asher, this thing really needs to start making its mind up. And in my opinion, this would have been an ideal trade and an opportunity for XRP to re-enter a very reliable channel on a massive reversal candle, a humongous wick there, tons of volume, a 9 buy, and like a perfect dragonfly doji type formation. This would have been ideal, and it's really not happening. Like yesterday before I went to bed, I think we were up here. And now you can see we've already wicked down and we're turning this into a red candle. So, I mean, this is not what I want to see in a 9 to 9 count. And by that, I mean, let's say this is a 9 to 9, right? Obviously, this 9 was a buy, and we have back-to-back 9 buys. This one was kind of a very short-term 9 buy. As you can see, this one's starting to look the same way. Now, what I mean from 9 to 9, though, is imagine this was a 9 sell, just for the sake of this hypothetical. Now, a 9 sell to a 9 buy, all the way back up to a 9 sell, that would be a lot of really interesting technical action. And that kind of stuff is stuff that you can make a ton of money from. But right now, this is really not looking like that. I was hoping, that this would be a good trade. And I almost got my hands dirty, but it looks like I might not have to.
Yeah, and what about talking about Ethereum at the moment? We're seeing any action there that might be worth monitoring?
Let's see here. Ethereum is looking quite similar. I think that this looks similar to Bitcoin in the sense that, yeah, we do have, the majority of the sell volume near the end, the majority of the buy volume on the new low for this market cycle. And I think, it's pretty similar. The moving averages are probably trending a little differently. Let me just do a quick comparison here. I just want to look at these moving averages on the daily. Yeah, so there's quite a bit more distance, not to mention a bearish crossover. We finally met the bearish crossover, the 125 and 200-day moving average. The 50 is still pretty far away, trending down at 8,300, and our bearish crossovers in the 9,000 territory, 9,400. So back to Ethereum, it seems like we're a bit closer. Here's our bearish crossover of the intermediate and long-term moving average, and here's our bearish crossover over here. Obviously, the market hasn't reacted to this very negatively. So I think that we're okay, and this is starting to feel bottomy to me overall. So Ethereum is bundled up in the market bounce category on a green 5, a little bit different than Bitcoin, which is on a green 6. So I don't think any of these will be hitting a 9 buy, another 9 buy, I should say. But right now, we're definitely looking at, I think we're looking at a market-wide bounce.
Okay, it does seem like there's some positive action out there in the marketplace. It'll be interesting to see whether it's sustainable and whether that sort of few minutes of massive growth that we saw just there will pan out to something more. As you said, watching out for that 7,600 number in Bitcoin to see if we're able to break through that resistance. But in the meantime, Joe, I want to thank you so much for helping to break down this market as it's happening here in the space. And in the meantime, stay with us at blocktv.com for all the latest in news and information. I'm Asher Westrop Evans. Thanks for watching.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.